Well, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to also thank you, ISGF, for organizing this event once again. And I think this event is becoming more and more important for every practitioner in this space. Just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Nishant Bhardwaj. I work for Department for International Development, Government of the United Kingdom, based in the British High Commission, New Delhi. I am an engineer by training, but practicing finance for over 15 years. I was based in Asian Development Bank in Manila. Now I'm working with DFID. I lead the energy work, and both on the technical programs and the investment programs in the energy space. So everybody here is talking about the smart grids and the smart meters and the electric vehicles, and that's an obvious space for private sector participation. And I think it's important to take a step back and think about private sector participation in the distribution sector. And I would like to point out that in the Electricity Act 2003 provides the two approaches for private sector participation that were tested. One was a full-scale privatization that happened in Delhi, that happened in Mumbai, West Bengal, and also in Odisha. Then there are private sector participation through franchising model, and with varying degree of private sector participation. As you would all know, being a practitioner in the power space, that the privatization of Delhi Vidyut Board is one of the best examples, if you would like to say that, for private sector participation in the distribution sector. And when you look at what made, Mr. Sinha is here, and he may have more views about why it is so successful, but I think we need to look at what went right when the privatization actually happened. And in my view, there are three fundamental things that happened right for privatization in the Delhi Vidyut Board. One was the transition period support by the government of Delhi. 3,450 crores were provided by the government of Delhi as a transition support. And that was absolutely because this provided cushion for the tariff shocks to the consumers. Also the revenue requirement of the transmission company and the bulk supply tariff payable by the DISCOM. I think that played a very, very important role in government to think that how to deal with the transition period. The other was the alignment of regulatory framework with the reform conditions. Guaranteed 16% returns on equity actually helped government, the private player to experiment with best practices, bring in the best in class of the operational practices that helped aggressively reducing the losses. Probably one of the best operating entity in India when it comes to loss reduction and the losses, the T&D losses. The third was the strong employee safeguard. I think we have to understand the political economy that exists in this country. And there was a tri-party agreement between Delhi Vidyut Board, the employee representatives, and with the government that was absolutely critical in terms of ensuring that there is no unrest. The services remains unaffected by the process of privatization, and there is no curtailment of any benefits to the employees. That ensured quite a lot. I think these are three fundamental good things that happened in the privatization process. Looking at franchisee model again, if you look at Maharashtra Bhiwandi, the torrent power experimentation with the franchisee, it went really well. And there are several reasons why it went right. But there are many examples where things have not gone right. It's Aurangabad, Jalgaon, Jamshedpur, Ranchi, Gaya, Bhagalpur, the list is long. And the reason being that why they are not so successful, and it's important to look at why they didn't go the route of being so successful as Bhiwandi. The reason is that there was no establishment of credible, acceptable baseline. The lack of capital expenditure to achieve the desired outcomes, and the relaxed qualification for who can come in as a franchisee. And as a result, those who came in to do this franchising model had a very limited experience of in the power sector. And the employee unrest. The political economy was not managed properly in those cases. There are several good things happening in the franchisee space. For example, in the Rajasthan, there are 4 or 5 places where there is a new experimentation happening with the franchising model, where there is an input-based calibrated capex model, where the distribution franchisee needs to come in with a certain amount of capex for next 5 years. They have to ensure that that capex goes into the private sector. Now, what's the way forward? I think there's quite a lot happened in the private sector participation in the distribution space. We need to learn from those experiments, consolidate and standardize. Unless we do that, we can talk about private sector participation in sectoral spaces and in the niche areas. But I think to bring a change that we are looking in the distribution space, there has to be the fundamental change that needs to come in. And we have to basically ensure that if we are doing the privatization, we do it right, learning from our experiences. There is enough that is therein to learn from. I would like to make 2 more points. That Saubhagya scheme, which is the universal access to power scheme, is increasing the base for and including the rural areas to come in. We all know that the rural areas have willingness to pay, very high willingness to pay for the power. The studies have shown that. But then also it is important that the billing cycle, ESL made the point that the billing cycle is an important issue. Instead of billing it in 3 or 4 months together, that needs to be regularized, that needs to be institutionalized, and ensuring that the rural areas, they are comfortable paying their bills in a way that it doesn't create a problem for them or a burden for them. And then there are opportunities that everybody talked about: the electric vehicle space, smart meters, smart grids, AMI structures and infrastructure, tools that will help in managing or say proactive management of grid, the tools that are required. There's huge opportunities for private sector participation. Just to say that what DFID is doing in this space, we have a power sector reform program that is running. It's a 5-year program. It's a £15 million program, which is helping, mainly focused on distribution reforms. We are also supporting the MOP constituted committee on resolution of issues on carriage and content. This will bring the fundamental change the way the distribution sector operates. Our program is supporting on resolution of issues, learning from the UK's experience on carriage and content separation and the retail market development. And I think there's a huge progress happening, and it is mandated under the Draft Amendment Act of Electricity 2003. We're looking forward to supporting Government of India. We are also coming out with various business models that will help utilities to participate in solar rooftop driven power, the solar rooftop models that bring in energy security at the last mile. That's happening in Andhra Pradesh. It's an experiment, but if it becomes successful, the 40 gigawatt will look like a piece of cake. So I will stop here and happy to take more questions as it comes in. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant.